Should I give homeschooling a try? If you've asked yourself this question, then the answer is yes, enthusiastically yes. How can I be so sure? That's because what's the worst thing that can happen is that you send them back to school. I'm pretty sure in most states you can change your mind. Kids do it all the time. They move, they transfer, they switch schools. And so the same can be done for homeschooling. So if you are throwing around the idea, you've been thinking about it, you're curious, and you're just not sure if it's for you, well, you can give it a try. And if it isn't for you, you can send them back to school. So that's why, if you're even remotely thinking about it, the answer is yes. Hi, my name's Rachel, and welcome to my new channel where I hope to chat about all things life. Today, the topic is homeschooling, and I'm specifically talking to those who are on the fence about homeschooling. That was me 10 years ago. We had never even thought about homeschooling when our oldest was born. The plan was always to send her to kindergarten. And throughout, my mom was a public school teacher. Both my husband and I went to public school. We lived in a great school district in our minds at the time. And so, that was always the plan. And so, as the time drew near, we had our second child right before that summer, before our oldest was due to start school. And so we sent her to kindergarten, and I had to switch jobs because we were having such a difficult time finding daycare for our second child. And so my husband and I decided that there was a position open where I worked where I could just work part time, 20 hours a week, second shift. And so then we wouldn't have to do daycare. My husband works first shift. And so he got off at 3, and I was lucky enough that I could start at 4. And so that's what we decided to do. And it ended up working pretty well. We did that for 7 years. But with that, that meant on the days that I worked, which was 3 days a week, I did not really see my oldest child when she was in school. I would take her to school and then pick her up and usually have to leave shortly after she got home, about 15 minutes. And so that did not leave very much time together. And I very much missed her. And it was strange being home and her not being home with me when I had been working part time, just different hours before that, and she was with me. And so it was a pretty big change, but we were like, you know, what are you going to do? And so we ended up deciding to, we bought a different house, and we were saving so much money on daycare that we were like, oh, I think it's time. And then we also had our third baby about a little less than 2 years after our second baby. And so our we had still continued to talk about, like, each year, should we homeschool? Should we homeschool? We knew quite a bit of other families that were in kind of that we were friends with or acquaintances with that were homeschooling. And so, I would talk to them and then think, no, I have too much going on between, babies, or when I had a little one and being pregnant and we were moving and all of that. And so we continued to keep her in school all the way through second grade. And then when she finished second grade, that was kind of a rough year for her. She did not have a very good teacher, and just it just wasn't good. So we were like, like, life has kind of quieted down. Let's just give homeschooling a try. What's the worst that can happen? We have to send her back. It'll be fine. Like, if we don't like it, it won't be anything different than what we were already doing, which I thought, that's pretty low stakes. Like, let's just give it a try. And so we did not send her back that following year. And the rest is history. No, just kidding. Actually, it was a wonderful decision that we do not regret at all. We ended up loving homeschooling. It was a great choice for our family. For one, I worked second shift for 7 years. I was able to quit and stay home full time back in 2021, the second half of 2021. And so we loved all of the freedom that it gave us, with, like, even just simple as, like, we don't go on a ton of vacations, but usually like one a year, sometimes two. But it's nice to be able to go not just on spring break or just on Christmas break or in the in the summer and whatever because of school. We went when it fit our family best, and that always leads to less crowds, sometimes like cheaper places because you're traveling not during like peak hours and things like that. And so that ended up just being like a really nice perk. I loved being able to see my oldest again every single day instead of just for little short periods of time. She loved being home. Like I had said, the year before hadn't been like great. And so she was happy to be home with us. I feel like since she's 5 years older than her one sister, and she's 7 years older than her other sister, she was already in school when they were pretty much like born. And so her being home gave them so much time together too, and just able to build friendships and just really strengthen our relationship as a family, and just work on things that we felt were important, as well, just with siblings and stuff like that. And then also just being able to pick curriculums. All three of our children learn very differently, and we started out with one curriculum, but tried out a few other curriculums just that worked better for how I like to teach, how my daughters like to learn each of them. We can slow down the pace. We can work at their pace, either fast or slow, depending. I have one who didn't struggle at all in school, and then one who's pretty, average. And the last one, school is a very big struggle. And so it's really wonderful to just be able to like slow down, work with her one on one, really see that she understands the concepts before we move on. And she just would not have that in school. I think she would be one of the children that's left behind that, would be pushed through because she's quiet and sweet, and just would be overlooked. And so it's just been really great to be able to slow down and work at her own pace. With that, our oldest is graduating this year, which is very bittersweet. Obviously, this is my, first. And so saying, in some ways goodbye. We're super excited for her and her future, but also we're going to miss having her around as much, even though it's been less as she's gotten older. We still get to spend more time together than most families because we are home together for school. And so, we're very excited for her, but obviously a little bit sad too. So we will hopefully, we're very close, and so hopefully that will continue as she moves on to this next phase of her life. And we are just so blessed and grateful that we decided to, give homeschooling a chance. It seems so overwhelming and scary when we were talking about the idea, especially since it wasn't something that I had ever even like entertained the idea of doing. I really thought, you know, we would be where I thought I would always work. I thought when our kids got all school age, especially, that we would send them all to school. I thought that up until like we decided to homeschool the last one, and keep going with homeschooling. And so it was there for a while, very much like a year by year, and just deciding what was best for our family. But we ended up just loving it. But it ended up probably being one of the best decisions we've ever made for our family. You can't get these years back. So if you are on the fence about homeschooling, my advice is to go for it, because what's the worst that can happen? You send them to school, and that's perfectly okay. But if you don't try it, you might miss out on something amazing. So I hope this video has encouraged you to, take that leap and decide to homeschool. You might absolutely love it like we did. I would say go for it. Have a good one. We'll see you in the next one.